So I single-handedly saved Stanford wrestling. And I've never been thanked, but I've taken a victory lap a number of times. I've come out and made this claim a number of times. And there was a supporting cast, so they think, and they raised a whole bunch of money. It was well over $10 million and blah, blah, blah. They couldn't get so much as the interest of the president of the university. This is true. They could get a little bit of a meeting and they got brushed off. They couldn't get to a politician, to a senator, a congressman, to a governor. They couldn't get to an actual decision maker. I handled this on my own, and I've made this claim, and nobody's ever denied it. Nobody from Stanford's ever denied it. Nobody on the inside has ever denied it, but they've also never thanked me. I don't have a dog in the race at Stanford Wrestling. I got a wrestling club. Stanford's never recruited a single one of them. Now, some of that could be a GPA issue. I'm just sharing with you. I did that entire thing. And I did that entire thing because of information that I had to do with the Stanford admission scandal. And one way that they were going to whitewash was to just get rid of all the sports that they had done it through. And wrestling happened to be one of them. So it was easier to clear the books and be able to burn all of the records. And what they missed is this really wasn't that big of a deal. Whether the news is covering it or not, there were some people that thought those parents were parents of the year. I mean, it was really up for debate. It's just Stanford felt so close to it, they thought it was like this great embarrassment. It wasn't. There was a guy with some money, and he found a weakness, and he was getting them in, and he used sports programs to do it. That's true. Getting rid of all those programs to get rid of the history, it's already out there, right? Whether you've done this 3 times or 13 times or 300 times, it's not going to change the story, and that was the miss by Stanford. I just brought it to everybody's attention, and they said, you're right. Now, I'm giving you a very fast version of it, but that's the fast version. There's a reason that nobody has ever denied my claim that I did it, because I did, even though they don't want to thank me. A little bit weird. Okay. Yesterday, the NCAA comes out, and they have decided that they are going to suspend a plethora of wrestlers for gambling. And we've known that this is coming, right? Like, this has been the world's worst kept secret. We knew the investigation was going, and we know that athletes gambled on the sport, and we know that rule, and how hard is the NCAA going to flex, and this was the only question. And the NCAA, by the way, is not a court. Like, you'll often hear people say, well, you know, these athletes, they'll have their day and they'll have their time in court. No, they don't. A court implies a judge, and a judge implies a disinterested third party. The NCAA is the judge, jury, and the executioner. It's just one of these situations. There's many things out there like that. I'm just bringing to you, there was no judge, and the NCAA will act on rumor constantly. Constantly. It's not a question of do they have the facts, can they prove it? It's not a question of that. Do they believe it's more likely than not? And moreover, the litmus test the NCAA will do is, will this person sue me? Regardless of what evidence I may or may not have, regardless of what facts I'm fainting I have versus what I actually am in possession of, do I believe that they will sue me, or are they going to take the beating I'm going to give out? There is a reason that when you hear about the gambling scandal, you hear about it from the wrestling standpoint. And that it's not because the wrestlers gamble and other people don't. It's because the wrestlers are poor. That's why. You think the crew members don't gamble? You think the kid playing polo at the Ivy League school, him and his buddies don't sit around and gamble? The NCAA doesn't go after them and will never go after them because their parents got money and they're going to push back. And the NCAA doesn't have this authority. The NCAA does not have the ability to tell legal adults that they can't do a legal activity. And this mistake gets made all over. People argue, yes, we do. We absolutely do. We could always be more stringent with the law. Well, let me stop you right there. I know you can't be looser with the law. So, of course, if you're to do something, you have to be more stringent. Like, don't think that you get credit with me for sounding like a smart guy. Well, we can do things that are more stringent. Well, what's the opposite? You can do things less? A federal law doesn't apply if I'm working for you. It's just a stupid thing to say. And secondly, no, you can't. It's unconstitutional. It's just never been tested. It's never been tested because the people that you pick on don't have the money to fight back. So you have legal adults that legally did an activity. That activity is known as gambling. And there's a few fringe things within our society, right? You do alcohol, tobacco. I was part of it 20 years ago. I was part of this thing called No Holds Barred, and we were fighting in a cage, and we're to hide out where we do it, and you don't want to tell anybody, and it's one of these deals. And we were looked down on. We're this fringe part of society, and I understand that gambling operates in that same vein. within public perception. And within public perception only. There is nothing illegal about it. You've only got two categories. What can you not do and what can you do? There is no difference about gambling than there is in being a school teacher, than there is in being a plumber, than there is in being a fireman. It goes in the category of legal. So the NCAA has chosen to take legal adults who are doing illegal activity and say that they can't do it. Now, when you really get, I got to stop you right there. Right there is my argument. Bring in an attorney worth his salt, the same as the crew members and the Polos folks would do, whose folks probably are attorneys, and there's a reason they will never even be looked at, versus the poor wrestlers that don't have a pot to piss in. And that's I will stop right there. I will add to you for conversation. The entire reason the NCAA doesn't want you gaming on it is they think it can impact the integrity of the game. And that's very important to uphold when you're making so much money off of gambling. It's not as though they're against gambling. It's not as though they're a bunch of hall modders over at the NCAA and they just can't stand this. They can't change the laws. By God, as long as you're here, we're not going to have anything to do with those gamers. They are gamers. They game on every single thing that they do, and they make a small fortune doing it. And they want to preserve the integrity because you will have people that are allowed to bet on a game, and then they will rig the game. That's true. And that's not good. That is where gambling would come to a stop. But to act as though the NCAA can be the hall monitor on it, as opposed to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, who does get involved when somebody attempts to rig a game, it's just a silly situation. And they're coming after the wrestlers because they can. They're coming after the wrestlers to set an example for the sport they really care about, which is football. Like, we all understand this. I'm stating the obvious. This is a conspiracy. This is absolutely what's happening. It's a very transparent thing. They ever go after the crew member, and why don't they ever go to the polo guy? There's never been an investigation at Harvard or Princeton or Yale. Are they just above reproach? Do they just not do things like this? Is that what you believe? Is that what you believe? Because I spent a week one weekend at Princeton, okay? Let me tell you. The parties are better and wilder there than anything we've ever done to the West Coast. No, the answer is their folks have money and they're not going to lay down and stand for it. And they're going to tell you this is unconstitutional. They're going to tell you that you have legal adults engaging in illegal activity and it's none of your business. And a court of law is going to agree.